Okay, we are starting back up. All y'all whippersnappers, get back in your seats. Ready for more fun with Azure. Everybody always says there's nothing better than just talking about software on the weekends. I was volunteering with high schools earlier today, and I told them I was going to a coding conference, and they were just terrified. They're like, why would you do that to yourself on a Saturday? And I guess I just have nothing better to do than hang out with nerds. Okay. So, speaking of nerds, we have the queen of them right here. That was bad. I'm mean. So, Sucheta, if you're going to say who in this room most had to work to be here, she drove all the way from Cleveland just to talk to you all. So, you need to appreciate her.
Thank you so much.
And I'm happy she did because she is, I thought I had a lot of certifications. She has more certifications than I do total in just Azure. So she has 12? 12 in just Azure. That's a lot.
Thank you. Thank you.
And she does a lot of work with teaching, educating on software, and also just a big fan of APIs in general, API management, and manages a IT division inside a software company. So really excited to have her. Give it up.
Thank you so much. All right, thank you all. Can you all hear me well? Yes. All good? Okay. So I am definitely happy to be here, driving all the way from Cleveland, but my husband did most of the driving, so I was just sitting around. I was actually watching Matt's presentation while he was driving. But definitely happy to be here to present as part of Global Azure. And thank you, Azure CBUS, for enabling this. Thanks to Drake, Mark, and everyone who volunteered, sponsors, obviously, and speakers. Great job. So about my topic, leveraging Azure, Entra, and Intune to protect organizational devices through policies. So let's understand the topic a little bit, okay? I assume most of you sitting here have company-owned devices that you're given to do your day-to-day job. So those devices could be your laptops, PCs, Windows PCs, or MacBooks, or it can be Android phones, mobile phones, iOS phones, iPads. I call these, or we call these as endpoint devices or end user devices. Now, these end user devices, organizations are supposed to protect data on these devices because, can you guess where an organization's data is most vulnerable? On end user devices, because obviously end users are not that savvy or wary when they use the devices for work. Their focus is more on doing the work, right? They wouldn't care about security. So it's the organization's duty and the admins within the organizations who actually secure these devices. Do you know how these devices are secured? You probably see, yeah, that's one of the things, encryption. So you probably see when you try to do something on your device, on your work device, and you get a prompt saying that your admin has blocked this action, that's something the admin has done. That's something I would do as part of being an admin for endpoint management because I've set certain policies for security. And this is exactly what we are going to look at today. What we are going to look at is some of the policies. Now, there is a plethora of things that we can do from a security standpoint to secure or protect organizational devices, but we are going to look at the most important things here, which we can do through Azure, Entra, and Intune. Now, a question for you. Is anyone here familiar with what Intune is? All right. So you have to note, you are, Mark, I know. So it's Intune, it's not iTunes. There's a difference, okay? iTunes is the Apple product or service. Intune is a Microsoft service. It's an Azure-based service. We'll get more into that as we go ahead here. So Drake already introduced me, but that's me. I'm a manager in healthcare IT. And 12 times Microsoft certified. I do love learning Azure and exploring it and using it at my work. So that's why all those certifications. But I specialize in modern management and enterprise mobility by leveraging Azure and Intune. So those are my core work areas within IT infrastructure. And then those are my socials. If my talk today instigates an interest in you to learn more about endpoint management or Intune in general, feel free to reach out. So, and that's my blog, techcaching.com, which I'm still building to share knowledge about Azure and Intune. So you'll find more information there. All right, so here is the agenda. And I know we are short on time, but I'm going to cover some very important specific items. Device management and Intune is what I'm going to briefly touch upon, just so everyone gets a quick overview of what device management and Intune is. And then I'll get into how you would protect devices through policies. Basically, I'm going to talk about Intune's built-in capabilities that can be used to secure devices. And the policies that I'm really going to talk about today in a little bit of detail are these three: the configuration policies, compliance policies, and conditional access policies. So it's 3 C's. Those are the 3 policies we learn about today. I am going to squeeze in a quick demo, just so you guys understand or relate to what I'm talking about, and then we'll wrap it up with some key takeaways and questions and answers. All right, so let's start with device management and Intune. So device management basically means having controls in place to centrally administer devices or endpoints within an organization, regardless of their physical location. As we know now, with after COVID, or even before that, we've been working in a hybrid model. So people can work from anywhere. They take devices out of the company's network, but are still able to work. So how do we still manage those devices centrally? How do we secure them? That's what device management helps us do. So we optimize device features for business use. We deploy updates and software on the devices. We configure settings. We enforce security. So that's really what device management is. And Intune is the tool that helps support or that helps the ability to do that. So basically, Intune is a cloud service. It's an Azure-based service. It's part of Microsoft's Enterprise Mobility and Security Suite, which is the EMS suite. And it helps manage all of the things that you see here on the graphic, the features and benefits. They really are deploying and updating software, configuring settings, and everything that I talked about device management. And then at the bottom of the graphic, you see mobile device management and mobile application management. There's a slight difference between the two. Intune supports mobile device management, which is very specific to company-owned devices, because as an organizational admin, the admin can have full control over that device because the company owns the device. But then what about devices that are personal to end users, and they have Outlook on there, or they have Teams on there, which is a work app, but being used on a personal device? To secure the work apps on those kind of personal devices, Intune offers mobile application management, which is MAM. Although MAM is specific to using or securing data and apps on personal devices, it can also be used or coupled with mobile device management to enhance the security of corporate-owned devices. So just understand a little bit of a difference here and the capabilities of Intune, because Intune is capable of securing the work apps on personal devices using MAM, and then obviously it is capable of securing the corporate devices themselves and the apps and data within them with the help of mobile device management. So that's kind of a very high-level overview of what Intune is and what device management is. Now, let's learn about some inherent or inbuilt capabilities of Intune, and why would I call it a product or service that offers security for devices. Now, Intune natively integrates with Azure and Entra. it actually seamlessly integrates with most of the Microsoft products and services, or you could say Microsoft ecosystem. It is a cloud-based service, like I mentioned before. So obviously, Azure is the underlying cloud here. And with Entra, we can utilize some of its capabilities like conditional access, which is one of the policies I'm going to be talking about in detail. So Entra plays a crucial role in assisting Intune to do its job. So basically, what I'm going to be talking about today, the policies, they are what is a blend of Azure, Entra, and Intune. So you actually leverage the three together to secure organizational devices. If you look at the graphic, that gives you a better understanding of Intune's capabilities. And starting from the left, so you have either organization-owned devices or you have personal-owned devices. Either of those devices, you can push policies to. And if you look closely there, some of the policies is what I'm going to cover today. But you push those policies to your organization-owned or personal devices, and then we check compliance. We check whether the devices are compliant or not with those policies. And regardless of the compliance, you can still also push conditional access policies to the devices. I'm going to talk more about these different policies, the compliance, the conditional access as we move along, but this is just a high-level overview. And then based on the conditional access, an admin or an organization can either grant or deny access to the organizational apps, which is Outlook, Teams examples, on these kind of devices. So that's kind of a workflow where we can use policies to control certain things on devices, be it corporate devices or user-owned personal devices. And Intune also helps with supporting zero trust initiatives, because zero trust is definitely booming now. Every organization really wants to go ahead and start their zero trust initiatives for enhanced security. And any controls that the organization would want to put in place as part of zero trust, Intune is ready to support that, because you can configure settings through Intune to support zero trust initiatives. So that's Intune from a security standpoint. And now we get to the crux and talk about the actual policies here. First off, I have here is the configuration policy or profile. As the name suggests, it is the basic settings that you would apply onto devices to configure them. And that can be something like if an admin wants to restrict an end user from using camera on the device. If the device is company owned and it wants the end user to not use camera or block camera, we can actually set that up through a configuration policy. Another example would be blocking Bluetooth. I can block Bluetooth on a corporate-owned device using a configuration policy. So basically, I create and set up configuration policies in Intune, and then I deploy it to a set of devices. And that's how it gets applied. These settings are broadly classified into restrictions versus features. Restrictions is what I gave examples for right now. Bluetooth restriction is a good example, but then another restriction would be password restriction. You want to have the end user to have a specific character length password or a specific complexity password. That is called a restriction. And I can set that through a configuration profile or a policy. And then there is features. Features would be more like something you do on an Apple device, on an iPhone. I, as an admin, can push out policies to give a specific home screen layout to the end user. I can hide apps. I can give them the ability to see messages on a locked screen. Those are features. They are not specific to security. What is specific to security is the restrictions part of the policies. So restrictions control security. Another example for restriction would be I can specify and apply a policy to devices where I would ensure the devices only connect to a specific Wi-Fi. I don't want them to randomly go to a coffee shop and connect to the Wi-Fi. I will not give them the ability to do that on a work device, just to secure the device. So those are kind of examples of where restrictions come into play and how that helps with security. Also, there are two ways in which I can create and apply these configuration policies. I can either do through a settings catalog, and I will show this when I demo it. I can either create and deploy through a settings catalog or through templates. Settings catalog is the full-fledged all settings that I will have to pick and choose from. But then to make admins' lives easier, Intune has templates. And templates are more like logical groupings. Say if I want to create a VPN profile and deploy it out to my devices, I can just pick a VPN template in Intune and create that policy. So that's settings catalogs and templates. And then what I have here next, the certificates, endpoint protection, kiosk mode, those are more broader examples of what I could do as an admin to configure on end user devices. Certificates is what plays a role into cert-based auth to give secure access to end users on the devices with certificates without having to put in their usernames and passwords. I can also create Wi-Fi and VPN profiles, like I said, based on cert-based auth. Endpoint protection, I heard someone say encryption. So endpoint protection is where I would create and define settings for encryption, to enforce encryption on company-owned devices, to enforce firewalls on company-owned devices. And then there is kiosk mode. If you've gone to a CVS Minute Clinic, you probably saw a kiosk there on which you check in. All you can do on that interface is look up your name and then check in, right? So there's nothing else you can do, although it is a computer on the back end. You don't see the start screen, you don't see a Windows logo, nothing. You just see that one particular app. That's called a kiosk mode. So I can transform a Windows device or even an Android device, an Apple device for that matter, into a kiosk to make the device more locked down. This is more useful in healthcare scenarios where I work at. So I do this all the time for different use cases. Basically for patient check-ins, we create or lock down devices into kiosk mode to make them more secure. So the patient doesn't go and do random things on the device. So that's another example where I can do this with the help of configuration profiles or configuration policies. And then obviously from a security standpoint, I can create a security baseline. I can baseline some security aspects or controls and then deploy it out to all of my devices so that I know all the end users have a specific level of security on the devices. So there's a bunch of things you can do as far as configuration policies go. Next up I have is the compliance policies. As you can see in the figure, those are checks or rules. Now to ensure security of devices and thus in turn security of the apps and data, an organization must check the compliance health of these devices. Now an organization has given out these devices to their end users, but they have to be on top of it and check the compliance and health of the devices to ensure that security stays stable. So there are platform-specific rules and checks, which we call as compliance policies. And these define the rules and settings that devices must be compliant with. Examples include, so I may want to require devices to run a minimum OS version, right? Because I don't want them to be outdated on an OS version only to keep it vulnerable to attacks. So those kind of checks I can do with the help of compliance policies. Another example would be if my end users are using their personal devices for work use, I want to ensure that device is not jailbroken. That is another compliance check for which I can create a compliance policy and deploy it out to the devices for checking the compliance. So All of these measures in turn make the devices more secure and help protect organizations' data. And Intune helps protect this by requiring the devices to meet specific requirements and also to report compliance. I, as an admin, can also set policies for the devices to report compliance within a specific period of time. I can give them 30 days. The end user, if their device is on a lower OS level, the end user can upgrade the OS, and next time when the device checks in with Intune and reports its compliance, I see it's on a good OS version. It's on an OS level that I would find it to be secure. So I can do that. I can actually set policies based on the level of security I want. And obviously, we need to regularly monitor the compliance and the device status to identify potential risks. So now, okay, I as an admin, I deployed out these policies. The devices are reporting compliance. I am monitoring it. But what do I do with the data, right? What I can do with the data of non-compliance is take action. Take action on the non-compliance. Send an email out, which will be automated through Intune. Intune will detect that the device is non-compliant. It will automatically send out an email notification or a push notification on the phone to the end user to tell them to go upgrade their device, if that was why it was non-compliant, if the OS was not at a good specific level. And it's not just that. There are many other things I can do as an admin to help and mitigate the non-compliance. Although compliance policies do not necessarily go and remediate something that's not compliant, but it can help me take certain actions to have the end user do it. Just like Mark was telling me, he gets prompts on his laptop asking him to upgrade Chrome because maybe the Chrome is on a lower version than, than what it should be. That is something we can deploy through policies and ensure that the end users take action before their devices check back in with Intune so that we know that the device is compliant. And of course, these compliance policies can be combined with conditional access, which we are going to talk about on the next slide. And with conditional access, I am going to block non-compliant devices. Let's see how. Now, conditional access is an Entra feature. You can actually look up conditional access policies either through the Intune portal, through the Azure portal, or through the Entra portal, because it's uniform across the platforms. And we have device-based conditional access, and we have app-based conditional access. What I'm going to talk about is more about the device-based conditional access. And access here is going to be based on certain conditions. Basically, conditional access policies are if-then statements. Let me give an example. If a user wants to access a resource, which is an organizational resource, say Outlook, on a company-owned device, then they must have done a particular action, or they must have met a particular requirement, which could be as simple as doing a multi-factor authentication. Or it could be something like, I as an admin would want the user to have access only if they are using an Android device. I don't want to give the user access if they are using an iPhone. Just an example there. So it is platform specific. There's a lot of flexibility in what I can do with conditional access. Basically, with conditional access, you can enforce compliance. So we saw the compliance policies on an earlier slide where we check for certain rules. If those rules are met, then based on conditional access, we can actually grant access to the user and the device. If the rules are not met, we can block a device which is non-compliant. So in general, compliance policies control and restrict access to data and apps based on, say, a user, their location, whether they are logging in from a trusted IP range, whether they are logging in from a specific Windows platform, whatever you can think of. You can actually create controls for that. And that instills robust security. Also, so we looked at 3 kind of policies, right? We looked at configuration policies, we looked at conditional access, and we looked at compliance policies. We can combine the 3 to enhance security and to enforce better security requirements onto corporate and personal devices. So that's the best part, where these 3 policies that we learned about can be merged to give a better experience to the end user, as well as to ensure that the organization's data and devices are kept secure. So that's really it from a policy standpoint. And I do want to show you real quick on the Intune portal how things look here. So let's see that in action. All right, so I know we are short on time here. I am about to finish right after my demo. So if this is the Intune portal. I'm just quickly going to show you the home page. And within the Intune portal, if I go to devices, these are the 3 policies that I've been talking about: configuration policies, compliance policies, and conditional access. Configuration policies, I have a couple created here. One is for Android, one is for Windows. But if you look at one of these, on the Android devices, what I want to do as an admin is camera, block the camera on that device, screen capture, block screen capture on the device. So, or this, copy and paste between work and personal apps. I want to block that feature. So I can block that feature right from here within my policies, and then what I do is I actually deploy that out to a group. I don't have a group assigned here, but I would deploy this out to a device group, and those devices will be my end users' devices, and then once they get the policy, they will be restricted from doing that kind of stuff. And then I have something similar for Windows, where I'm actually going to block using a USB connection on a Windows device. And these are just examples. I know admins wouldn't go that mad about this. Blocking removable storage on a Windows device. That's possible. So these are configuration profiles. Then there is compliance. I'll show you this one example, which is a great one. This Android device shows non-compliant. If I see the report, I can see this is my Android for work. It's a personal Android, which shows non-compliant. And this is what it is reporting in Intune. Now, I want to see why this device is reporting non-compliance. I can actually go to the device and drill down to the actual reason why it would show non-compliance. So basically here in device compliance, if I look up, it shows me that it is getting a default compliance policy, which it is compliant with, but it is not compliant with something very specific. If I double click here, it's going to show me it's not compliant with a policy that my admin has done, which is that I need a particular minimum OS version. So those are the kind of settings that we can do and also report back on in Intune. And then the third one here obviously is the conditional access, which I'll quickly show. Something like blocking access for unknown or unsupported device platforms. And then there are 3 things you can do with conditional access. You can either just get a report of them, or you can actually turn them on and start blocking things, or you can keep it in an off state. So that's pretty much it. And then if I go back here, the only other things I really want to show here is, yeah, we already did the demo, the key takeaways, right? So obviously, securing devices is important. And it's actually of paramount importance, as we all know in today's world, where we are so vulnerable to attacks and ransomware and whatnot. So it is crucial and can be accomplished with a combination of Azure, Entra, and Intune. Intune really is the main factor here because it is the central tool to manage your devices and secure your devices. Intune actually falls under the umbrella of Microsoft suites. And then we use Intune's capabilities to support a journey towards zero trust environments to secure not just devices but also data and apps. So yeah, that's pretty much it. And I think using Intune definitely helps. So go ahead and explore it. You know, it will it will be fruitful in helping admins to better manage their devices in an organization. With that, thank you so much. And if you have any questions, feel free to bring them up. Thank you.
I'm actually stealing the first question. Is it possible to, I guess, accidentally or on purpose, brick a device with Intune where it will not be possible to connect to resolve the issues? So, like, could you turn off Bluetooth and Wi-Fi and Ethernet and you can't actually get back into the device to unblock it?
That's possible.
On accident, or to try it out.
It's possible, just like just like how it is possible with some of the other Azure controls, security controls. Like they have this, Microsoft has this red content in there. Beware to not lock yourself out when you do these settings, right? So it's possible, but again, it depends on whether you're doing it to a corporate device or to a personal device, and what other controls you have in place. But yeah, I mean, the answer is yes. If you're not careful enough as an admin.
As the father of a 13-year-old son, would it be possible to lock down all of his devices from accessing, I don't know, naughty websites and TikTok and,
Yes.
and how feasible would that be? How much would it cost me to do? And
All you need is an Intune P1 or P2 license.
oh, how much does that cost? To the penny.
So you really can go for an EMS license, an Enterprise Mobility and Security license, which I think should be around maybe $25 per user per month. I'm not sure
Worth
on
it.
that. And I know Microsoft keeps changing the licensing requirements so often.
Those jerks.
I could be wrong, but yeah.
Yeah. Oh.
But you definitely should. As a parent, I do think, when I become a parent, I probably will do that. I'll probably have my own Intune and take care of my family devices, to lock them down.
I'm going to go check that
including my
out.
husband's device.
And by the way, you can automate all this stuff that she talked about with Terraform. Just throwing that out there.
If you would like to,
Yep. Tight.
and not use Intune. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, you're fine. So I wanted to ask a bit more of a granularity kind of question. So it's more of a twofold question. For example, in the minimum OS compliance issue that you had shown us, I'm assuming it would be possible for you to enforce an update to the operating system remotely through Intune. Is that fair to say?
It is, and so we can do that if the device OS allows it. Like Android or iOS, they should allow an admin to do that, to take control of that through Intune. And I know in most cases it is possible, like I can enforce a password. I can enforce a user to change the password. I can keep prompting the user until they change the password. For an OS as well, I can do it. And then there are different ways to do it, like I can create a configuration policy and then enforce OS upgrade. But if it's a personal device, I wouldn't have that control. I can just prompt the user, but I wouldn't want to touch a user's personal device from that standpoint. So,
And then a follow-up question as it relates to web browsers. Would Intune allow you the granularity of essentially restricting web browsers? For example, Mark should only be using Edge as a, respectable Microsoft individual. So I was just kind of curious if that you could enforce that as well.
yes. And basically, rather than enforcing, you would configure the device in that way.
Oh, okay.
You can only give Safari access on the device. For instance, like if Safari is a standard browser at your organization for an Apple device. Then,
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. That was
Sure. Yes.
So as a follow-up to his question about the home, if you're already on the 365 where you get like a family license for like 6 people or whatever, can you add Intune or whatever to that and use it that route, or is that a completely separate?
I'm not sure if that pack or that edition includes Intune, but you might want to check. If that includes Intune, you will be able to take control.
Okay.
Because I know it is the business edition which contains Intune inherently as part of the license. But if you're talking about a personal M365
Yeah.
or a M365 for a family, it may not include Intune
Okay.
in your plan.
Okay. And then a follow-up question is the stuff that Intune does. Is it especially on I'm familiar with Microsoft's Windows operating system. Is that implemented on the machine by using the policies or
Yes.
the G whatever they call it?
GPO.
Yeah.
GPO is more on-prem, but Intune also has cloud-based GPOs.
Okay.
So it is replicated exactly similar to what you would do on-prem from ADDS, Azure Active Directory domain services. You can do the same thing from Intune. You can deploy group policies through Intune.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's like a front end to group policies, in a way.
Because it has a user interface. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Sure.
I was curious on the architecture. Let's say you make a change, a policy change. Is that pulled? Is it pushed? Is it hybrid? Like what's the actual mechanics of it? Yes.
That's a very good question, actually. So say I created a policy today and I deployed it out to 1,000 endpoints, which is 1,000 devices. And then tomorrow I want to make a slight change in that policy. I'm going to affect all of those devices when I push it again. It is a push. It is never a pull. It can be a pull in cases where you only make software available on the company portal from where end users will download it for themselves. But for the most part, security policies will be a push, and you will affect all the devices that are targeted in the earlier push, unless you create a new profile and you give a different subset of devices, or you assign a different subset of devices to that new policy. So if you're using the same policy, if you don't change the assignment of the devices, you're going to affect all the devices with the new change. Any other questions? Sure?
Yeah, so, Cameron, you want the mic?
We'll leave the last one for.
Sure, yeah. We're already about, I know, we'll be on time.
Yeah, so kind of going with the mechanics still, is this, is the security, is security blocking work similar to error handling, where you have different conditions that trigger exceptions?
Not exactly. This is more about what you can and cannot do on a device, right? So it will block. So if you're going to, if you, like I said, a coffee shop was a good example. If you go to a coffee shop, try to connect to that Wi-Fi, you may be blocked if there is a policy which is which actually forces you to only connect to a company Wi-Fi. So it's going to do those kind of things. It's not going to do error handling type of situations, like it's not going to correct the end user from doing wrong things, but it will block if the policies are in place, block from doing certain things which the organization has set.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
All right, thank you so much, everyone. I definitely. Thank you.